I'm going to talk a little bit about some of my group's recent work on usable security and privacy beyond end users. So I'm going to start by asking how many people have seen something that looks kind of like this recently? Everybody. How about one of these?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah? Maybe slightly fewer people, one of these? Safety number changing in signal?
I saw that this morning.
Less common, maybe sometimes. So all of these are interfaces that are more or less designed to be usable and to help you manage your security and privacy. And all of these represent sort of, although far from maybe what we would like, pretty big improvements over what we had previous to these versions of these things. But at the same time, they're still kind of a pain, and everybody laughed when I put the cookie thing up, right? Nobody really likes dealing with these. And indeed, we have great organizations like EFF putting out really nice and well-designed guidelines about how to manage your own privacy and security and defend yourself from surveillance. And this is a great document that EFF has put together, but at the same time, having to go and look up a resource like this to manage your security and privacy is sort of not ideal, right? Most people don't have the knowledge, the time, or even the power to fully manage their own security and privacy in today's world, and we shouldn't expect them to, right? It's not actually fair or reasonable to expect everybody to read all the privacy policies, take care of all the software updates, choose all the most secure devices, reject all the cookies, right? You can spend all day, all your life doing these things. And that's why one of the sort of governing principles in my lab over the past few years has been trying to broaden our view here. We've made great strides in making security and privacy more accessible to individuals and to end users, but it's just not enough. We need to figure out how to make security and privacy decision-making go better for people who have decisions that have higher impact. So we're talking about professionals who have leverage and whose security and privacy decisions actually can impact hundreds, thousands, maybe millions of people and their security and privacy, rather than trying to help every individual user fix this for themselves. That's also important. I don't want to discount that, but we also need to make sure that we're supporting these high leverage folks. And so when I talk about professionals and people with high leverage, what am I talking about? Well, some of them might be people you expect, like software developers or security operations personnel. But it's not just those people. It's also people like the folks at EFF who generated that guidance for helping people manage their security and privacy. It's product reviewers who give people guidance about which products are or not safe or private to install in their homes. It's even YouTubers who, as it turns out, are providing a surprising amount of security and privacy information to people who view these videos. It's also people like social scientists and people who work at the Census Bureau who conduct surveys and take measurements of people that then turn into data that can potentially be published. And it's even librarians who, as it turns out, have to manage the privacy for their patrons who come in to use library devices and library technologies to achieve their goals, whether that's anything from looking up information that they're afraid to look up at home to applying for jobs. And so these are the types, just a few examples of the types of professionals that my group has looked into the security and privacy needs for the past several years. And because I do only have 15 minutes, I picked out just sort of 2 of these to talk about in a little bit more depth. But I'm happy to talk about any of these types of groups as we run into each other around the symposium today. So I thought I would talk first about security analysts and playbooks. So the idea of a playbook is a step-by-step guide for incident response. So security analyst is someone who works in a company or organization in a security operations center, and one of their jobs is to kind of monitor what's going on in the IT for that organization and notice when something bad is happening, some kind of attack, and respond to it in some way to try to mitigate the attack, stop the intrusion, whatever it is. And there's been a big push of late to go towards this idea of playbooks, which are step-by-step guides. So when this incident is happening, it's very high stress, things are happening fast. Instead of having to stop and think about what to do, you can follow the instructions in the playbook to mitigate this incident. And this, of course, is not a new idea to information security. It's borrowed from other kinds of safety cultures and procedures, for example, aviation, other parts of the military that use this same idea, when a crisis is happening, to try to have a straightforward plan to deal with it. But in the context of information security, we found that the use of these playbooks is increasingly popular. It's often recommended or even lightly mandated by certain government entities and organizations, but we found that there's not been any evaluation of these playbooks, how they're constructed, whether or not they actually achieve the goal of helping these security operators mitigate these incidents. This paper is kind of complicated and has a lot of moving parts, but the part that I'll talk about here is a field study where we're actually able to work with an organization to implement 2 playbooks for authentication-based attacks into their security operations center. And then we were able to, over the course of 6 or 9 months, work with 5 security operations personnel to have 3 no-notice attack exercises. So this is basically a fake incident that occurs with no notice that the operators are expected to respond to as if it were a real incident as part of their training. And so we worked with this organization to manage these and see how the playbooks worked. And initially, the answer was they didn't. As it turns out, the experienced operators did not find the playbooks useful because they were at a sufficiently high level and kind of simplistic that the experienced operators sort of already knew all of these things and didn't need to be reminded. On the other hand, the novices found them confusing and difficult to use under stress in this simulated incident, so they didn't work. And on top of that, as it turns out, we had several cases of failing to recognize either that the incident was happening or that the incident mapped to the playbook and just not actually taking out the playbook to use it at all. And it turns out if you don't open the thing, it can actually be very usable or useful to you. So that didn't work. So before the third exercise, we worked with the organization to do a reset. So this included mentoring and coaching the personnel on how to incorporate the playbooks into their system. It included doing some tabletop exercises to refine the content of the playbooks to make them more useful. And then for the third exercise, we saw success, including for a brand new, newly onboarded participant who had actually been trained coming in with the updated playbooks. And so we take away from this is that, playbooks can potentially be helpful, but they don't work in isolation if you can't recognize the opportunity when the playbooks need to be used. They need to include a higher level of detail. They need to include more options. So some of the existing ones sort of straight line through do A, do B, do C, and instead they need to look more like a flow chart in case, making decisions and then doing different actions depending on them. And these playbooks need to be institutionalized into the work of the Security Operations Center, including mentoring and practicing and making them part of the process in a way so that they can actually be made useful. And so we think that there's some potential here to build better tools for helping these things. The second case study that I'll talk about here has to do with VPN ads and influencers. So some of you may have seen a YouTube video that includes an ad for a VPN, so in this case NordVPN. And these are not ads that are served by YouTube, sometimes those too, but the ones we're talking about here are ads that are made by the YouTuber, and they say, this is the sponsored content, this video is brought to you by NordVPN. And we wondered, how prevalent are these influencer ads? And what are they actually teaching people about security and privacy on the internet? And we randomly sampled about 1.5% of YouTube in order to find out. It turns out that's quite a lot of videos, 1.5% of YouTube. And based on that random sample, we can estimate at the time, which was in 2022, that there were about 16,000 videos containing these VPN ads, which added up to billions of views. So these are not mostly not in videos with few viewers. These are in popular videos with large viewership. And again, there's just a ton of results in this paper, but just highlighting a few things. We found some pretty concerning claims in these influencer ads, including overpromises and exaggerations. So this says, I promise if you go ahead and give NordVPN a try, you won't ever have to worry about anything on the internet again. Sounds great, sign me up. We also saw a lot of sort of incorrect discussion of things relating to financial data and credentials. So this one says that if you're using a VPN, no one can see your passwords. Of course, most websites on the internet today are already encrypted in transit using HTTPS, so VPN is not actually adding a lot of benefit here. We also saw things about VPNs preventing your credit card getting stolen on the back end from the server where you've made a purchase. That's not what VPNs do. And then, of course, just some truly bizarre statements like this one where our friend Gary mentions that he can digitally shred files using military-grade encryption. I don't know what that means. I'm not sure anyone knows what that means. So this is potentially a problem. And so we see all these claims, and then in kind of a follow-up study, we wanted to understand how they're actually impacting people who view these videos. So we asked some folks to provide us with their YouTube histories so that we could calculate their exposure to these ads and then compare them to their mental models of VPN specifically and security and privacy on the internet in general. And what we found was that most of the technical claims don't really stick. Correct ones or incorrect technical claims don't really make a big impact on people, but these broad and often hyperbolic threats do. So this general sense of doom on the internet does stick and make a big impression on people. So what we find is that many of these incorrect and often hyperbolic claims are reaching millions of people and potentially creating this sense of doom that we know can create a learned helplessness. It can cause people to just give up on trying to protect their privacy and safety at all because they think that there's no hope. And so we hope that there may be some directions for improving this, perhaps maybe sometime in the future with some regulation, better education for the influencers who are making these ads, other kinds of interventions to potentially counteract some of these messaging, and other similar ways to try to improve this essentially educational process that's going out to millions of people with incorrect information. So that was just a little taste, but I hope I've convinced you that we really need to look at privacy and security issues beyond end users, because people really can't and shouldn't be held solely responsible for protecting themselves in today's world. And we need to give more attention to stakeholders who are in a position to hopefully make a big positive difference if we can provide them with the support and the help to do so. And that might include building better tools, providing better guidance, and other kinds of support to these stakeholders. Thanks.